So continuing our discussion with weight and balance, we reviewed we just talked about the what I like to call the down and dirty method for R44 weight and balance. And just for a quick review of that, if you have a pilot and two passengers, then given that all three of those people weigh 200 pounds apiece, you can go completely full of fuel and still be within max gross weight. If it turns out to be a pilot with three passengers, everybody weighs 200 pounds apiece, then you can go just a little bit below half full of fuel and still be within max gross weight. And then we talked about where to put the passengers so that you would remain within longitudinal CG. And the fat guy or girl goes in the back, and the skinny guy or girl goes up in the front. But let's talk a little bit about lateral CG. For a little bit of history about the Robinson helicopter, if you go back about 10 or 15 years and you looked at an old POH from, I don't know, this was from I think 2004. If you look for figuring the weight and balance on it, it didn't even have a place that you figured lateral balance on the practice sheet or the sample sheet. And there was a statement in the POH about one paragraph long that basically said that it's essentially almost never necessary to figure the lateral balance on a Robinson helicopter, basically because it's almost impossible to get a Robinson helicopter out of lateral balance unless you do something goofy. And under normal loading conditions, the aircraft should be within lateral balance. Well, what's an example of something goofy? Well, not too long ago, we bought a used helicopter that had one of these pods that was bolted onto the skids, which is an aftermarket deal, wasn't a Robinson accessory at all. And the pods I think they were very limited on the amount of weight you were supposed to carry in the pods. Now, I don't remember how much it was, but it wasn't much, 50 pounds or 100 pounds, whatever. But, given the chance for people to screw up and make mistakes, I can't help but think that somebody probably loaded one of those pods up with, way more weight than was supposed to be in there. But if you're doing something goofy like that and you're bolting something to one of the skids outside, then yes, you can get the aircraft out of lateral balance. But even short of that, just normal loading conditions, the aircraft should be within lateral balance. But let's talk about how the aircraft flies and how you load in the passengers to achieve good lateral balance. All right, so the main tank on a Robinson R44 holds 29.5 gallons usable. The aux tank is 17 gallons usable, and it's on the right side of the aircraft. So the left side of the aircraft has the main tank, and it holds about 12.5 gallons, or roughly about 75 pounds more fuel is going to be in the main tank than is going to be in the aux tank. So when the pilot, and again, the main tank is on the left side of the aircraft. When the pilot gets on the right side, the pilot's weight helps to balance against that extra 75 pounds that's on the left side of the aircraft against the pilot's weight on the right side. And so if the pilot's the only one in the aircraft when they pick the aircraft up, the aircraft is still relatively level skids. Might be just a teeny bit right skid low, but pretty level laterally, left to right. Okay, so let's say you have your first passenger that you're going to put in the aircraft. Typically the passenger sits up front with the pilot, mostly because the visibility is better, they get a better view, a better ride, they can see things a lot better. So with rare exception, most people sit up front with the pilot if there's just one passenger going. If you stuck somebody in the back seat, you kind of feel like Morgan Freeman on Driving Miss Daisy. It would kind of seem weird to have one passenger in the back and you're sitting up there all by yourself in the front. But okay, so that the first passenger that you put in the aircraft, besides the pilot obviously, usually goes in the left front seat. And let's say again we'll use 200-pound American in there. And so now when you go to lift the aircraft up, the aircraft is slightly heavier on the left side than it is the right side. And it's kind of noticeable. When you pick the aircraft up, you're going to be slightly left skid low. So that's to be expected. A lot of people are kind of surprised when they first start flying the R44. If you have a pretty good sized passenger up front with you on the left side, you go to pick the aircraft up and it's just a little bit left skid low. Okay, so how about your next passenger that you're going to put on board? Now you've got the pilot and two passengers. So the guy sitting up front doesn't want to give up his seat, so he stays there. And our third passenger we're going to get to put in the back seat somewhere. What side do you want to put the passenger on in the back seat? Works out a lot better if you stick them behind the pilot, because if you put them behind the pilot, the weight of the pilot and the one passenger on the right side help to offset the weight of the passenger on the left side and the additional 75 pounds or so of fuel that's in the main tank. And then if you finally get to a fourth passenger, then obviously they're going to go in the other seat in the back. And when you go to lift the aircraft off, even with 3 or 4 passengers in there, the aircraft still flies relatively level skids. You know, if you had the pilot and 2 passengers, and instead of putting the third person, when you only have 1 backseat passenger, if you put them on the left side of the aircraft instead of the right, now you've got 2 passengers plus the additional 75 pounds of weight in fuel in the main tank, offset only by the weight of the pilot. And so that left skid low position would be even more prominent, and it would definitely be noticeable when you pick the aircraft up. So, you know, the rule of thumb is the third person, or the second passenger or third person, should go behind the pilot. All right.